to the BSOC Bulletin podcast by the UNSW Business Society. I'm Adrian and I'm here with Britney and Shreya. In this episode of the Startup Series, we're going to be talking with co-founder Jun Tang. Jun founded Yellowbox through the UNSW Founders Program in 2018, which is a smart locker system that can securely store the public's personal belongings. How are you feeling today, Jun?
Yeah, not bad. Feeling good. Yeah, can't complain.
I think just to kick things off, we'll start with a simple question. Where was your favourite place to eat at UNSW?
Okay, there's a few of them out there. I think my mates would know me, would probably think Stellini's is my go-to because every time someone looks at my Instagram story, they would see Stellini's in. Otherwise, the quad schnitty is definitely the other go-to. So yeah, can't go wrong with it.
I think, yeah, definitely a good pick. I think for me personally, it's definitely Yalla Eats. It's always my go-to. They always have very wholesome foods. What about you, Britney?
Personally, I would say that I'm a big fan of Penny Lane just because the coffee there is really great and also they have spaces to study as well, so it's super convenient.
Yeah, I think as long as I have a coffee, I'm happy. Alongside the great places to eat at uni, Jun, are you able to give us a brief overview of your journey from uni to where you are now?
Graduated in 2019, graduated with a commerce economics degree, majored in finance and econometrics with a minor in marketing. Did my fair share of university societies, which got me plenty involved with initiatives like this, creating events and leading teams as well. Yellow shirts, also went on an international case competition, which was really great experience. But I also did get a good insight into corporate whilst at uni, doing a few internships over the summer. And those were for EY and Macquarie. And I think that really gave me a great insight into the corporate side of things. And it very much was what my planned pathway was during university, up until when the last 2 years of my university study, where I started with 3 other co-founders, Yellowbox, and really sort of pushed the idea of Yellowbox, fleshed it out, created the product as well. And yeah, so I pretty much during the last year of my time at university was very much focused on Yellowbox and using that time to flesh the product and create the product.
Oh, yep. So I'm just kind of curious right now. Did you start Yellowbox straight out of uni?
Yeah, that's right. Essentially, the second last year was through the Peter Farrel Cup and really getting that sort of flourishing the idea itself. And then my last year at uni was really pushing and developing the product. We went through an accelerator as well through my last year.
Yep. So would you be able to kind of tell us the journey of where Yellowbox has gone since the beginning and how the Peter Farrel Cup assisted with that?
Yeah, so it all started at the Peter Farrel Cup. And at the time, us 4 co-founders really came into it just by thinking about it as if it was a competition. And I'd done a few case competitions in the past. So that's really what my mindset was. It wasn't really to build a business. And I think there's a lot of pressure to put on a couple of university students to think about it as if they're building a business. And that's why it was very, very simple for us to think about it as, a case competition. We're really trying to flesh out an idea, test it, go out and talk to some customers and potential partners, and really flesh out the business model and the financials, and really cover all the FAQ that judges might have, which are just the question: if an investor was looking at the idea or the business, how would they analyze it, and what queries, what hesitations might they have? And then us covering that with either research or talking to customers or clients to relieve those concerns. The whole program was really great in terms of providing mentorship. We gained a lot out of understanding more about the startup industry and the prop tech space through it, and is good for also practicing pitching. We were able to come second, and that really gave us a lot of confidence in our idea and our product, got a bit of funding, and we were able from then on in with enough confidence and funding to produce the product and develop the product.
I guess, yeah, following on, you did mention the Peter Farrel Cup in 2018. What was the main motivation or event that sparked the idea to create Yellowbox?
Yeah, it's a good question. We really all had our own pain points which all contributed to us wanting to solve the problem that Yellowbox solves. So what Yellowbox is in a nutshell is essentially the product at its base is an app that is able to open up a locker, and that app can be connected to 5,000 lockers. And therefore, in our minds during this competition, we wanted to create an app that gave you access to a smart locker wherever you are, whenever you need it. And that was solving the problem of, we all had different problems, but for myself, it was when after university or after work, I had my work bag or backpack, walking around the city is an absolute pain. And really thought of many situations in my life where I would have appreciated to have a public locker that I could use to put down my backpack or my work bag, go to dinner, go to drinks, and really enjoy my time without having that burden along with me, like walking around the city and walking around locations essentially in the CBD. Similarly, my co-founder Ben, he found out pretty quickly that you can't bring a skateboard into a few venues. And so he actually couldn't go to a few venues after he had gone skateboarding with his longboard. And he really would have appreciated a locker at that time and place. And similarly with Adrian and Vanessa, very similar in terms of being in the city or at the beach or shopping and really wanting somewhere to put down their shopping bags or backpack and really enjoy the activity at hand.
Yeah, that definitely sounds like right about going somewhere and definitely not being able to find a place to store your goods in a way like it's super convenient for people. I guess from the journey that you've had from the Peter Farrel Cup till now, from all those experiences with the company, what has been one of your favorite memories from working at the company?
Favorite memories? Definitely having the first people use Yellowbox in the public. That was definitely a fantastic one, but then also we had some great experiences along the way, which the team was able to go to San Francisco for a week as part of the 10X Accelerator program, and it was an amazing week to be able to experience over there, attend a few conferences, and really understand what the market is like over there in San Francisco and Silicon Valley, as they call it. But yeah, I would say probably that first time when someone used Yellowbox, it was very much, when we launched the product around the end of 2019, and we put our lockers in a couple of nightclubs and a couple of beaches as well. And it was just probably the most odd time I've ever had in a nightclub, which was just like not really being there to be at a nightclub, but just watching some lockers and just analyzing essentially. But it was a really great feeling just seeing someone go through the process of using a locker with our app in a nightclub, no assistance from us whatsoever, and just seeing them go through the process, open locker up, store their locker, store their stuff. And then we actually ended up having, on that first night, we had someone go from one location, storing their stuff at one nightclub, and then going to the other nightclub that we had Yellowboxes at, and then storing their stuff again, which was an incredible sort of feeling, that knowing that, without what we created, they definitely wouldn't have known about the other location either, which is a heads up to the network effect that we're looking to create as well along the way.
Yeah, I guess following on from the previous question, you did mention the Smart Cities Accelerator program. I guess just for a bit of context, are you able to explain a bit about what the Arcadia City of 2030 is, and I guess how that program helped Yellowbox?
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, I definitely didn't know what an accelerator program was until I went knee deep into sort of the startup world. Accelerators are essentially these programs that startups apply for to gain funding, mentorship, and access to potential partners, clients, and also join a like-minded community as well. And these programs typically go over 10 to 15 weeks around. It's a program where you're accelerated in terms of your knowledge and understanding, and your idea is really tested to the max and really pushed through to get from A to B, essentially, because the model really is, these guys have done it before. They've got the mentors to provide you with the understanding and the knowledge and the suggestions that will really push your product if you didn't have it. And so really accelerators have been a core part of my startup knowledge, because there are elements that you don't learn in accounting 1A which are around how to test ideas quickly, how to pivot, how to keep testing, and to reduce your assumptions along the way. And there's things like product market fit that you learn along the way, and customer success, sales, things that are very much specialized to the startup itself. And so Techstars is very specific. So we went through two accelerators actually. We went through the 10x accelerator here at UNSW beforehand, and then we went into the Techstars accelerator. They're a bit different in terms of how they go about it. Techstars is a specific model. They're a global accelerator, and they specifically partner with corporations that might have an interest within a space. So the space was smart cities, and Arcadis, they have an offering within their advisory. So Arcadis is a global engineering consultancy, and they have a consultancy around smart cities. And so they're very much in the space and looking for innovative startups to either partner with or to, essentially on sell or advise for whatnot. Yeah, and essentially Techstars partners with these corporations, and then startups apply. So I think there was about, actually don't quite, like 150 applications around, and then 10 startups get through and actually part in the program. And then you go through, get some great funding, get great mentors. So our mentors that we went through with the program, we're still very much in touch with now, and they've provided a lot of support and mentorship to us throughout the last year and a half, I'd say. As Arcadis being the partner with Techstars in the accelerator, they ended up actually being a client of ours through the process. And that's really one of the goals of the notion of accelerators partnering with corporations, is for the corporation to partner or become a client of the startups, and really to give them that credibility within the market that they can work with corporations.
Yeah, it's pleasing to hear that the partnerships you created have been maintained since. I guess on a similar note, what has been one of the most valuable pieces of advice that you've received from one of your mentors?
Honestly, at the start of the business, you actually get a lot of advice, and a lot of different advice and conflicting advice as well. I think this was especially an issue for us that's sort of at the start of the phase of when we were fleshing out the idea. Nowadays, it's a lot more fluid in terms of we have mentors that really know our business really well. We have consistent catch-ups with them, and so there's less of that needing to filter out the unknown. Because of course, you can't expect mentors to know everything about your business, because they, depending on how hands-on they are, they only have a limited time to understand exactly what's going on within the business, and they don't know all the undertones and all the subtleties that you go through in terms of, talking to partners, talking to customers. They'll only sort of know the end result at most. And so at the start of the journey, we really need to learn how to filter and understand where mentors are coming from, and try to find the message in relation to what they're talking about. A big one that we had to learn over time was focus. And at the start of our business, we really we were at the phase of trying a lot of things out, and so we were doing a lot of random things essentially, and our mentor kept stipulating to us throughout a long period of time, you're not going to be successful unless you focus on a core business, and you have a core business. That can really be applied to anything really, but it's more so the way you go about applying the business, and whether your time or your mental capacity is split too many ways. I think it's something that's hard to understand for a founder, because you do need to try a lot of different things. And I actually fully back that. Up until the point where you found something that is a high enough product market fit, then you should be focusing and doubling down. But before that, feel free to essentially test your idea and test different ideas out, because that's the time to do it. But once you've found your product market fit, you really need to double down and focus and put the time and energy to really understanding how you're going to flesh out that business model to the maximum. And being able to focus also, it puts the mind at ease a lot as well. There's definitely a mental aspect towards it. So definitely. We held a lot of resistance at the start when we were told to focus and advised to focus really hard on a specific business model, a specific sector of the section of the market, because we want to capture it all. In reality, if you don't focus on a specific part, then you're not going to succeed in any of them. So focusing and really succeeding at one aspect, one business model, one core sort of client group will get you there.
Yep, so I guess in a similar vein to the last question, during your journey with Yellowbox, have you found that there have been any significant challenges or setbacks?
Yeah, that's a good question, Brittany. Something that's probably news to probably a lot of people is what we started with the idea is definitely not what the business is right now. And that sort of reflects a lot of the business change and the pivoting of ideas throughout time, as well as understanding the market a lot more. Because in reality, when you're coming up with an idea and solving a problem, the way you go about solving that problem, or the way that idea fleshes out, you've got a massive information gap when you first come up with that problem. And so it is about, I'm definitely pulling out a number out of my ass, but essentially 90% of startups, I believe, end up changing their idea or pivoting somewhat in a different way to what they initially intended. Like very small amount of startups or ideas or initiatives start and finish the way it's intended, or at least succeed in the way it's intended. And we experienced a setback around last year during COVID. And that was because we went through, I think 2018, 2019, building the product. We launched the product at the end of 2019. It was very much going towards building a network of public smart lockers. And we received a lot of great support and a lot of tailwind in building that idea and pushing that idea out. But essentially what we found out within COVID is if you don't have a product market fit that is at like 80% during COVID, you're not going to succeed. I think we probably had a product market fit of 50% within a non-COVID space. We would have done all right, probably not at the speed we're going at now, but we would have done all right to push the product out in a COVID world. But in COVID, essentially that intensifies all of the difficulties and the concerns and the friction related to pushing out a new product. And so what we needed to have was a better business model and a better go-to-market that fit us a lot more. And how we did that was we started to partner with locker companies during the end of last year. And we did that essentially by creating by sort of isolating that our core competitive advantage as a business is all in the software and the technology, not really around the lockers themselves. And when I'm talking about the lockers, I'm talking about the outside shell, the material of the lockers. We really had to sort of learn that on the fly. And we always knew that we weren't going to become a manufacturing plant. And so by focusing on the lock tech and the lock software, we were able to partner with existing locker companies, which had existing networks, existing manufacturing facilities, and existing clients, and essentially upgrade their lockers with our smart lock. And we found out quite quickly within the market, because we went through this public competition for to win over the locker deal at the State Library of New South Wales. We competed against a bunch of other locker companies, and we partnered with a locker company in that tender to install our lock tech within the State Library of New South Wales. And that was very much a tailwind for us in understanding where if we partner with existing locker companies and upgrade their lockers with our tech, we're definitely a winning combination in terms of winning a lot of locker deals in the market. And that allowed us to take that proposition to other locker companies and propose to upgrade their lockers with our smart lock tech, and has created a business model which is a lot more fine-tuned to focusing on our competitive advantage, which is the tech itself, and worrying less about trying to improve areas that we're not so strong in, which are the locker manufacturing aspects and the installation aspects. Essentially, this model is a lot more scalable to us, not having to worry about the installation element and being able to expand globally as well, without having to have too much of a presence within an area, and without having to go through, pushing our product out as a locker and trying to go to market in every market and trying to build our name for ourselves there. We're able to have these locker company partners everywhere around the world and essentially have our system and our app be able to be operated. So definitely some setbacks from last year, but I think that turned into probably a much stronger model that fits us a lot better.
Yep, so you kind of mentioned a lot about Yellowbox fitting the market, and I guess the question I had based off that is, how do you determine whether your product fits the market or not?
Yeah, I think this is the golden question of startups, actually. This how do you measure the product market fit? It's bloody hard, to be honest, to understand whether the product is a fantastic fit in the market. Yeah, I think it really is sort of a qualitative measure of how hard is it to push your product to these customers. And if it's so, it was relatively hard. And to be honest, we probably thought when we were pushing Yellowbox as a locker to say nightclubs and beaches and entertainment venues previously, we didn't really have a relative notion of how hard this is. We thought this is just what was required to get the job done, and this is the minimum required. And so it wasn't until we really started partnering with locker companies when we found out where our market sat a lot better, and we found a lot less friction. It was a lot easier to get into deals. We had a lot more credibility as well. And so I think it's really very much a qualitative feeling of how easy or how hard this, because it can be X amount of hardness in terms of getting the product to market and how much customers want to rip the product out of your hands essentially. But yeah, it's quite relative, to be honest, with every business. And I think it's just, if you feel it's easier and you don't have to try to convince people as much, then, and they sort of understand, that they sort of have the problem. And then when they look at your product and just the general features, they see how it fits your issue, or they see what they can do with this product. That's definitely a big plus in terms of product market fitness.
Considering the challenges you described, and really engaging whether your product actually fits the market's needs, and then going through that constant process, what type of mindset do you think it takes to create a startup?
I do believe as a founder, you do need a particular mindset, because essentially no one's going to go out of your way to test the product for you. And there's really a lot of internal motivation that needs to come out of it. Really something that a real motivation to solve the problem at hand and or to make a difference within the world. I think are probably the keys in terms of, underlying fundamental motivations. But other than that, it's really a drive to solve a problem and test out a problem, because you do really need to get your hands dirty in a sense, but essentially you really need to put yourself out there and go out and talk to customers, talk to users, talk to potential partners, which could literally be, CFOs of companies, or they could be convenience store owners. They could be literally, for any business, there is a customer, there is a partner, there is a user, and they could be anyone in the world. But in reality, you can't build a business without talking to them in the first place. And knowing that by talking to them, you will find out about your business so much quicker and essentially accelerate your process in understanding whether your idea is a good fit in the market or not, is something that everyone needs to understand if looking to build an initiative or a startup, which is your customers are your shortcut to market. And without talking to them, you can do as much, product development in the world. You can do as much research in the world, but if you don't talk to your customers, you might have wasted a lot of time.
I think when you mentioned, that mindset required for someone to pursue their own idea, do you think it's possible or easy for someone to transition from a position where they're working for someone to a position where they're required to follow their own initiative?
Short answer is definitely, because all of us as founders had some sort of corporate experience or working for someone else experience. And there's definitely no negative to working in corporate or working on, a small business or working as a consultant or whatnot. They're all experience that builds to something. And I definitely took a lot out a lot out of my experience, at EY and Macquarie, and that gave me a lot of confidence, especially in the market as well, to put myself out there because I was confident in sort of the processes and also understanding what a day-to-day of employee of a business is like, which gives me a great perspective when we go out and hire employees. And so there's definitely a lot to gain, in everything bar starting a startup. And I think that's still experience really, and experience is better than no experience.
Yeah. So moving forward, what do you envision to be the future for Yellowbox?
We've established partnerships with the top Australian locker companies and manufacturers, and now we're pushing it into Europe. So we've got our co-founder in the Netherlands. We've just opened up an entity in the Netherlands as well, and we've been pretty much getting to that establishment phase with the locker companies over in the Netherlands, and some interest from Germany as well. We've also just recently pushed our market into New Zealand, which is exciting. And yeah, we're partnering with locker companies, and sort of working with them on deals that they have. And yeah, it's an exciting time. We're looking probably to hire in the next six to 12 months, looking to bolster our engineering capabilities, as well as customer success. And obviously with our model, we need people to manage relationships with our locker partners, and that's very much something that can be done scalably and globally as well, which is pretty exciting.
So just to wrap up and kind of bring this around full circle, what's your biggest piece of advice for current undergraduate business students?
There's definitely some things that I learned quite late during my university career, and which I would have loved to know earlier. The first is around probably more general, which is definitely like the experiences that you have outside of the classroom are the ones that you'll take with you post university. And what I mean by that is, I went through like did a lot of case comps during the end of my university degree, and went through yellow shirts and a lot of societies during the end, I think, or probably one or 2 years later. And it would have just been better to do it earlier, because you really want to make the most out of your off time, especially as a business student, where you have, compared to other degrees, you have a lot of time around your lectures and tutorials. And so really making the most of that time will be the differentiator for yourself post university. And then in relation to startups, I learned pretty late that UNSW has an incredible startup resource body, which is the founders, the UNSW founders. They have programs like the Peter Farrel Cup. So I had heard about this during my time at university. Really, I would have wished I had done that earlier. It's a fantastic experience, really, and there's no real pressure towards it. It's really just thinking of an idea and then fleshing it out with some mentorship along the way. And so, the founders program has that. They've got mentorship as well, which isn't tied to any program. They've got pre-accelerator programs to try to get startups or ideas or progressed ideas into the flagship accelerator program that we were a part of. New Wave, which is for women-led founders. The resources that are there and the funding that is there and the money that is there to really accelerate it, entrepreneurship at UNSW is pretty incredible. And you don't really understand not having it until you don't have it. If you're either a part of a different university or if you're just outside of university, there's a lot that actually missed out on from when you were at UNSW. But also the products and services that UNSW gives students access to, like Canva, Zoom, Figma, they're all fantastic products that can really assist people with ideas and startup to flesh out their idea more. For example, Canva really helped us being able to make our slide decks for the Peter Farrel Cup. Figma, that allows us to flesh out the user experience a lot more. And they're semi-expensive, outside of the free student package. So it's definitely something to capitalize on. And probably the last thing is, in starting an initiative, you learn so much about business and the intricacies of the problem you're solving just by doing things. So Really, and as life goes on, I've heard this a lot from sort of older founders that really advocated for us to really go hard into business whilst we were at university and whilst we were young. And that's because your opportunity cost of time increases exponentially as you go older. People have, families to take care of and responsibilities in that respect that really can't be prioritized, or really do have to be prioritized over a startup. And therefore you have a lot more freedom to go about, a startup, especially with the time that you have as well. And so, yeah, just really thinking about it as if you're solving an idea and sort of simplifying it in that respect, rather than thinking about it as like solving or creating a company. It's really just as simple as you've got a problem. What's your idea to solve that problem? And then testing a few assumptions along the way. So really simplifying it.
Just to wrap up, we'd like to thank you on behalf of BSOC just for taking time out of your day to interview with us. It's been a great pleasure. You've said a lot of interesting things. And yeah, just thank you in general.
Cheers, guys. Yeah, cheers, Adrian, Britney, Shreya.